Welcome back to Better Weeks Ahead, everybody. If you have Parkinson's disease, you know someone who has Parkinson's, or you just want to learn more about what Parkinson's is and isn't, then this video is for you. By the end of this video, you will know some basics about what Parkinson's is, how it comes on, what some of the symptoms are. You'll know a little bit about what the current treatments for it are. And most importantly, you're going to learn what I've done in the last 4 years while having Parkinson's to not just combat this disease, but to live very fruitfully and successfully with it and mitigate and in many cases lessen my symptoms to the point where at 4 years into my diagnosis, I'm doing better than I was at the beginning of the diagnosis. And that's with the progressive incurable disease. By the end of this video, you may find yourself saying, I need to get in touch with Paul at Better Weeks Ahead. That's my hope. I'll talk to you a little bit about why you should do that and how you can do that at the end of this video. But let's dive in. So I won't go into a big long history of Parkinson's. I just will mention, excuse me, that it's clinically named that, I believe in the mid 1800s, 1850, 1870, something like that. But we see a huge rise in Parkinson's with the rise of industrialization, right? Exposure to petrochemicals and toxins and pesticides and herbicides, et cetera, and things like that. There may be a genetic link. For example, my father had it, I have it, but there's not always a genetic link. So many people who have Parkinson's, no one else in their family has had it. But regardless of whether it's genetic or environmental or both, and most of the research these days is leaning towards it being environmental because we're seeing a sharp increase in it, whereas before we did not. And that indicates, at least in some of the evidence that I've looked at, that it's environmental, that it's exposure to neurotoxins. So without going into a big long thing on that or a piece on that, and not even really being concerned with how or why one gets it, well, what can we do when we do get it? So what you'll likely be told if you have it is when you go to the neurologist will say, here's some carbidopa levodopa, Sinemet. Take 3 of these a day to start. And they'll send you on your merry way. At least that was my experience. Depending on what neurologist you get, they may discuss some of the pros and cons of that medication. Again, if you're someone with Parkinson's or you know someone with Parkinson's, you should know these things. Carbidopa levodopa, also known as Sinemet, and we'll refer to it as Sinemet for the duration of this video, only alleviates what's called motor symptoms. What are motor symptoms? Motor just means movement. So that's the tremor. I've got a mild tremor tonight. Actually, it's barely there. And gait issues, which are walking issues, right? So the shuffling, kind of some stiffness or tightness in the leg, usually the left leg. It usually starts on the left side of the body. That's worth mentioning. So carbidopa is only going to alleviate those motor symptoms, the physical symptoms. So sure, you'll have less tremor, you'll probably walk better, maybe you'll have less stiffness and rigidity, but it's not going to do anything to address the non-motor symptoms. What are those? Insomnia, anxiety, depression, digestive issues, stuff around smelling, being able to smell or having your smell reduced. This whole host of other symptoms that one can have, one often does, and that I've dealt with Parkinson's. So that's the first thing you should know is the medication is only going to help with some of the things. I'll glance at my notes here. Here are some of the common side effects of Sinemet. Nausea and vomiting, dizziness, lightheadedness, or fainting, especially when standing up quickly, because it can affect your blood pressure. Involuntary or uncontrolled movements, jerking, dyskinesia. Let's pause there. Those of you who've experimented with drugs or are in recovery or know about methamphetamine use know that methamphetamine users, especially when they're using high amounts of methamphetamine and particularly when they're injecting it, are jerky and twidgety and seem to move involuntarily. That's because of the excessive dopamine in their brain. Carbidopa levodopa is dopamine replacement therapy. So you're literally taking dopamine. Now, there's no euphoric effects. I wish there were, but it doesn't get you high. But you can exhibit some of those same movements that someone on methamphetamine does. So that's worth noting. So dyskinesia. headache, trouble sleeping, nightmares or unusual dreams, constipation or diarrhea, dry mouth or changes in taste, fatigue or weakness, dark colored saliva, urine or sweat. Let's get into the serious side effects: behavioral changes, hallucinations, seeing or hearing things that aren't there, confusion, depression, anxiety, or thoughts of self-harm or suicide, impulsive behaviors, intense, unusual urges such as increased gambling, sexual urges, or shopping, movement problems, cardiovascular issues, allergic reactions, GI, sudden sleepiness. It goes on and on and on and on and on. Another thing your neurologist may or may not tell you, my neurologist did not tell me this. I had to find this out on my own. Carbidopa-levodopa, Sinemet, is like any other dopaminergic drug, right? Just like those of you in the drug world, you know that first you could do a little bit of coke or meth or opiates and get really high. Eventually you had to keep taking more and more and more to get the same effect. Sinemet is absolutely no difference. We'll pause to take a moment for our sponsors. Perrier, you guys didn't pick me up in time. I'm with Kirkland now. Thank you, Kirkland. So carbidopa-levodopa has what I call diminishing returns. Well, what happens? You continue to take more and more of the drug to get the same effect, and then the side effects of the heavy drug use become worse than the problems you're trying to alleviate. That doesn't sound like very good medicine to me. What do you think? So I didn't take carbidopa-levodopa right away. I finally gave in and started taking it and was never particularly impressed with it. It definitely seemed to alleviate some of the motor issues, but as I mentioned, it didn't alleviate any of the other things. Perhaps we've spent enough time on the problem. Let's get into some of the solution. So one more thing before we get into the solution. What your neurologist might also be saying to you after 5 or 10 years, because that's about the limit of carbidopa-levodopa effectiveness, is, well, don't worry, we've got another procedure that we can do. It's a $250,000 surgery. We cut into your skull, we put some electro impulses in your brain, and we control your brain with a little electron thing. Are you freaking kidding me? Deep brain surgery. My dad had it. It did not help him very much at all. And again, that only helps with certain symptoms, and it can cause other side effects. I was just reading an article the other day of a guy who had early onset Parkinson's who had it. He's like, well, on the one hand, it was good for this, but not for the other. So that's what you're kind of looking at in the Western model, is medications that only address a few symptoms, have a host of side effects, and stop working after a while, and having your skull cut open and electrodes put into your brain. Sorry, that's way too Orwellian for me. Now that we've spent some time on the problem, what I consider the problem, or at least a poor solution, I'm going to share with you what I've done in the last couple years. And this stuff isn't my opinion. It's not. I don't do this because I think it's cool. I do it because it works, and because the clinical evidence and the scientific evidence is overwhelming in this area. The 3 best things that any individual with Parkinson's can do are strength training, cardiovascular exercise, running, swimming, cycling, etc., and better diet. And this doesn't have to be a big, long discussion, and we don't need to get really technical about it. It's really simple. Let's start with what you should be putting into your body. You should aim to have a diet that's as low carbohydrate as you can manage. We'll pause there for a moment and say this about keto. The keto diet, where you aim to have 50 grams of carbs or less per day, was originally developed not as a shred down, lose fat quick methodology. It was developed to treat severe mental illness. It was developed to treat schizophrenia and bipolar and these other severe forms of mental illness. And the reasoning, and the science backs this up, is that by radically reducing the carbohydrate intake level, you radically reduce neuroinflammation in the brain. And again, this isn't my opinion. This is stuff we know quite well, that the less sugar you consume, and that's what carbohydrates are, the less inflammation you have on every cellular level in your body. More energy, better thinking, better sleep, less spikes in blood sugar and insulin, just better overall health. So I would say aim for a diet that is as low carb as you can stand. I tried keto for a couple weeks. I couldn't do it. It wasn't pleasurable enough for me, and I didn't get enough benefit from it to want to continue to do it. So what do I do today? I really limit my carbs. So I have a diet that is high in plant fat, lean protein, fruits, vegetables, nuts, nut butters, and I really try to limit. If I'm gonna have carbs, I save my carbs for dessert. So I really like butter cookies, for example, and ice cream, right? So I really try to save my carbs for those things, and I really try to reduce things like bread, pasta, rice, certainly refined sugar. I don't use any refined sugar in my coffee in the morning. If I'm gonna have sugar, I try to get it from fruit, and I really try to limit the carbohydrate intake. What has that done? That's helped me build lean muscle and lose fat. It's helped me with clearer thinking, better sleep, less depression, less anxiety. Again, remember, there's a direct correlation between sugar consumption, and carbs are sugar. There's a direct correlation between sugar consumption and depression and anxiety, and several other disorders or problems, if you will. So if you can just aim to have a diet that's low carb, high in plant fat, high in lean protein and fruits and vegetables, you're going to be in good shape. You may also want to take a few basic supplements. A good multivitamin, coenzyme Q10, omega-3s, a B vitamin. I won't go into all the science behind all those, but you can definitely benefit from that, particularly coenzyme Q10 and the fish oil. And there's a whole host of reasons why. It's good for your brain, your heart, your cardiovascular system, your nervous system, all of those things. Creatine. You say creatine and people just think of bodybuilders. Yes, 5 grams daily of creatine does help with lean muscle mass. Excuse me. But 10 grams creatine per day helps with cognitive health, right? And delays in onset in Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. So it's not going to cure your Parkinson's or even reverse it, but it can help prevent those things, or at least delay those things. Let's move on to exercise. Diet is super important. You absolutely want to have a healthy diet, but I cannot say enough for strength training and cardio. Why? I was just listening to a podcast the other night on Andrew Huberman, and the doctor he had as a guest on there, they were talking about anti-aging things, right? Which is a billion-dollar industry, ointments and tinctures and creams and pills and supplements. And he asked this Andrew Huberman, who's a neuroscientist at Stanford, asked this medical doctor, he said, what is the best anti-aging drug? And without even batting an eye, the guy said, strength training, regular strength training. He said, why is that? He said, it's quite literally the fountain of youth. And Huberman kind of chuckled. He goes, what do you mean? When you strength train, you release human growth hormone. Human growth hormone is what your body's releasing in abundance when you're going through puberty and developing and getting older. But then as you become an adult and into your 30s, it starts to go away. So you literally are releasing human growth hormone, generating the growth of new cells. You're releasing dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, right? All these chemicals. The way you look from strength training, right? Looking chiseled and cut and having a nice physique, that's almost a nice byproduct of all the other things that the strength training does. If you'll bear with me here, I'm going to pull up in my notes. Again, real quick here, just give me a moment. We're going to go to benefits of strength training. What are the benefits of strength training? Okay, 14 benefits of strength training. Here we go. Makes you stronger. Strength training helps you become stronger. Research has also found that it helps improve athletic performance in sports that require speed, power, and strength. Burns calories efficiently. According to research, building muscle increases your metabolic rate. So the more muscle you have, the more calories you burn, i.e. the more fat you burn, right? So the more muscle mass you have, your metabolic rate, the amount of calories you're burning in a rested state, increases. And that's good. You want a high metabolic rate. Shows that your metabolic rate is increased after strength training exercise. This means you're still burning additional calories hours and even days after you work out, right? So as the muscles are rebuilding, you're burning calories. Decreases abdominal fat, can help you appear leaner, decreases your risk of falls. Research shows that all exercise will decrease your risk of falls, but strength training is especially effective at this. One study found strength training in the legs to be especially crucial in reducing fall risk. Why is this important? The stronger you are, the less likely you are to fall, particularly in old age. The stronger you are, the less likely you are to fall, and if you do fall, the less likely you are to get injured. If you've been working your upper body and working on your reflexes, you're going to be able to grab and reach and stop yourself. If you do fall, you're less likely to get injured, and if you do get injured, you're going to heal quicker. If you're weak and out of shape and you fall, it could be a catastrophe, right? People that break hips in old age and then end up in a wheelchair for the rest of their life. Improves heart health. According to the American Heart Association, regular strength training exercise can decrease blood pressure, helps you manage blood sugar levels. Strength training may lower your risk of developing diabetes and can help those with the condition manage it better. One study found that strength training can help manage your blood sugar levels. Promotes greater mobility and flexibility. Improves mental health. Strength training can improve mental health. One review of 7 studies in youth aged 10 to 16 years observed a significant association between strength training and high self-esteem, physical strength, and physical self-worth. Makes your bones stronger, boosts your mood, improves brain health. Studies in older adults have pointed to significant improvements in memory after participating in strength training compared with those who did not participate in it. However, more research is needed. Promotes a better quality of life. So the evidence for strength training, whether you have Parkinson's or not, is overwhelming. If you do regular strength training, you absolutely will live a longer, healthier, happier life, period. Let's talk a little bit about cardio. And before we do that, let me jump back here and ask this question. Does strength training reverse the effects of aging? After studying muscle tissue samples taken from 197 people, researchers concluded that resistance training could slow and in many cases reverse the changes in muscle fibers associated with aging. This was true even in people who didn't start resistance training until after the age of 70. I mean, the evidence is staggering. It really is staggering. Strength training is the fountain of youth. Let's talk about cardio. I released a video not too long ago. I think it was actually on New Year's Day or New Year's Eve or Christmas Eve. And the title was Running Gets You Stoned. If you're a runner or you know anybody that runs, you've heard people talk about the runner's high. And you may hear people erroneously say, oh, it's the dopamine, it's the serotonin. That's incorrect. There's a great article, I believe it was in the New York Times, and it was titled, The Truth About Runner's High. Listen carefully. When you run, your brain releases endocannabinoids. Let me say that again. Endocannabinoids. If you heard the word cannabis, you were listening correctly. Running releases compounds similar to marijuana, similar to cannabis. If you're a cannabis user, you may love hearing this. If you're someone who's clean and sober like me, I appreciated this because marijuana worked really well for me from about the ages of 15 to 25, and then it just stopped working. Every time I smoked it, I got paranoid and anxious and tripped out and antisocial, and I just didn't like it. But from, say, 15 to 20 or 25, weed made me feel relaxed and creative and happy, and I enjoyed the feeling of it. I get that same feeling from weed, Freudian slip, from running. When I run, I get that 13-year-old boy high that I got when I first started smoking weed, when it was fun and expanded my mind and felt creative without any of the bad side effects. So Running gets you high, right? And again, we could talk at length about this, right? Increased mobility, strength, endurance, cardiovascular health, respiratory health. But running, and we'll pull this up here briefly, running is good for the body and the brain. Let's get into this. Health benefits of running on the brain and body. Here we go. Running offers extensive health benefits for both the brain and body, ranging from improved mood and cognitive function to enhanced cardiovascular health and stronger bones. Even short, regular runs can yield significant positive outcomes. Improved mood and mental health. Running is a powerful tool for mental well-being, helping to combat symptoms of depression and anxiety and reducing the brain's response to both physical and emotional stress. It can enhance pleasure, boost overall mood, and improve emotional balance by releasing neurotransmitters like endorphins and endocannabinoids. There you go. There it is right there. Enhance cognitive function, neurogenesis, and brain growth. Running causes your brain to grow. Increased brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF. Exercise elevates levels of BDNF, a protein that acts like miracle grow for the brain. These aren't my words. This is straight from the clinical literature. Miracle grow for the brain, supporting the survival and growth of existing neurons and encouraging new connections. Better sleep, benefits for the body. Cardiovascular health, stronger bones and joints, weight management, improved immune system, reduced cancer risk. So again, this stuff does apply to anyone and everyone, but particularly the persons with Parkinson's. So how has this translated in my own life? What have I done? Well, when I first got Parkinson's, I was taking 4 psychiatric medications and 1 Parkinson's medication. Now I'm taking 2 psychiatric medications at much lower doses, and I'm in the process of weaning off one of them. I'm currently taking 3. Super low dose of one, pretty low dose of another that I'm in the process of weaning off of, and I'll be off entirely, and then I'll be down at 2, and a low to moderate dose of the other. And I won't get into those. This isn't a talk about pharmaceutical mental health drugs, but just to paint a picture for you here. But I was taking 4 in the beginning. I was taking staggering amounts of a drug called gabapentin for anxiety, right? I'm clean and sober. I can't take benzos, so I was taking gabapentin. Much like the carbidopa-levodopa, gabapentin required greater and greater doses to where the side effects were worse than what it was treating. What were those side effects? After a year at high-dose gabapentin, I suffered daily suicidal ideation. And I thought, this is insane. Why am I suicidal? I'm clean and sober. I own my own business. I have loving family and friends. I have a wonderful life, a relationship with Jesus Christ. Why do I want to kill myself every day? Well, I looked that one up, and it said prolonged and excessive use of gabapentin can cause paradoxical shifts, right? It causes more anxiety when it's supposed to alleviate it. It causes worsening depression. It can cause suicidal ideation, agitation, fear, paranoia. I mean, this is Western medicine. So I'm completely off the gabapentin, right? So as I increased my strength training, improved my diet, and started the running, got completely off the gabapentin, got completely off another psychiatric medication, came way down on the other 3, and I'm in the process of getting off of 1 and being down to 2. So from 4 psychiatric medications at staggering doses to 2 at low doses. Let's talk about the carbidopa-levodopa, the Sinemet. I was taking 3 pills a day. Several months goes by. I don't really feel like I'm getting much benefit. I go to my neurologist and I tell her how much I'm taking. She's like, oh, well, just take 6, just double it. Again, that's their answer, right? More drugs. So I doubled it. And I didn't really notice much improvement at all. Now, whether or not it exacerbated my mental health, I didn't start compulsive gambling or watching a bunch of porn or spending a bunch of money. So I didn't notice any of the glaring side effects. And I certainly didn't have bad dyskinesia, the involuntary movement, but it was not really helping my Parkinson's. It was doing nothing for the non-motor. sleep, depression, anxiety, agitation, all those things, lethargy, mental fog, brain fog. It was helping the motor stuff a little bit. Since being on a regular strength training program for 18 months now, I've gone from 185 pounds, 25% body fat, to 165 pounds, 15% body fat. I'm 52 with Parkinson's and have six-pack abs. I went from bench pressing, barely being able to bench press 95 pounds 5 times, to being able to, bench press 135 pounds 5 times. So I've become stronger and leaner. And just in the last couple months, I've really dug into the running piece. In the last couple months, I've gone down from that 6 pills of the Sinemet, the Parkinson's medication, 6 of those a day, to 3 a day. Less involuntary movement, dyskinesia, way less tremor, better gait, better movement, better sleep. I have 0 depression today, like none. Certainly no suicidal ideation, no depression. I've got killer energy all day, every day. Most nights I sleep quite well. Some nights I have difficulty falling asleep or I wake up during the night, but for the most part I sleep really well. Great mood, drive, ambition, excited about what I'm doing in my life, hopeful, positive, optimistic. I feel amazing at 52, 4 years into a Parkinson's diagnosis, clean and sober, feeling amazing and wonderful. And there's no question why. It's because I've radically decreased the psychiatric medications and I've radically increased strength training and running and dialed in my diet. And I'm not a food snob, and I don't tweak out and get crazy on my diet and try to do micros and macros and portion control. I don't do any of that. I eat food and I enjoy it, but I've mastered my relationship with food. I don't overeat ever. I don't binge on sweets. I have dessert 1 night a week. Sometimes I cheat and have it twice a week, but it's usually once a week. And I feel amazing. We're coming up on 30 minutes here. I didn't want to make this video too long, but all this is to say, again, if you have Parkinson's disease or you know someone with Parkinson's disease, you absolutely need to get in touch with me and let me help you. The one-on-one coaching program is absolutely for you. If you're struggling with the motivation, if you don't know where to start with the strength training or the diet or the running, I'm not a personal trainer, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a doctor, but I can absolutely help motivate and inspire you and give you clear, clear direction and reasonable goals to set and help you work towards achieving those goals. So again, for the third and final time, if you have Parkinson's or you know someone that does, get in touch with me and let me help you. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope it was informational, and look forward to hearing from you.